Hi guys, it's David here from Write On Resources, and this is just a quick video looking at creative writing. Now this video is actually being made based on a student response. So this student response came from a creative writing task that we did on a previous video, having a look at bonfire night and trying to see how you can craft a decent piece of writing based on a stimulus. This video is going to be good for anyone studying GCSE English or anyone that's just looking to improve their creative writing skills. Okay, so let's begin and let's have a look at what we're dealing with. What is the creative writing process and what are some of the key elements? So one of the things about GCSE English is that it doesn't really allow you that much time to develop your creative writing. So when you're revising yourself, you need to think about these key elements because this will really help you to think about how to improve your writing. So step one, now this is pre-writing. The thing with pre-writing is that you have to give yourself an adequate amount of time to really think through what you're going to write and what you're going to focus your writing on. So you're going to think and decide and make sure you understand what you're writing about. In the GCSE specification, you'll be either given a photograph, an image, so a stimulus to help you come up with your creative writing, or you'll be given a scenario to base your writing around. Now you need to think very carefully when you're faced with both of those options to which one you can write about the most effective manner. Step number 2, research if you can. So obviously this won't work if you're in a controlled assessment or you're actually doing it in the exam, but while you're practicing and while you're revising and getting to grips with how to develop the skills of creative writing, why not spend a bit of time researching? Look up the kind of topics that you want to write about, potentially even look into writers who are famous in that genre. See how they do it, see what kind of techniques they use to make their characters, their scenery, their imagery, all of that come to life. Step 3, drafting and writing. So when you're drafting your response, it's important to know that nothing is perfect the first time round. Your writing should always be something that you see as a work in progress, always something that you should keep coming back to. So if you do produce any creative writing, it's important that you don't throw it away. Always look back at it, acknowledge the things that you do well, and see if you can work on the things that you need to improve. Step 4, revising. Make it better. A lot of the time this can be quite difficult and quite a boring process at times. It can be difficult because a lot of the time with our writing we get attached to it in a very kind of egotistical way, which is absolutely understandable. You are putting a piece of yourself onto paper, you're expressing yourself in a very personal way. So a lot of the time when we write something, you either want to completely dismiss it and move on, or you don't want to make any changes. If that is the case, you need to get used to the idea that nothing is perfect in the first try. We're just talking about getting those baby steps and just trying to make sure that eventually down the line we're able to produce something that gets us a high grade in the exam. Step 5, editing and proofreading. Make it correct. So if we're actually talking about the GCSE English exam, proofreading is extremely important. It's not just about making sure that your story makes sense and it follows a logical order or structure. It's making sure that your spelling, your grammar, your punctuation, all of those things are correct, because it's really easy to lose out on a few key marks by using incorrect grammar or misspelling very simple words. So it's always good to go back and double check those things. So this video has been created based on a video that we did a while ago, creative writing for bonfire night. So if you want to look back and revisit that, then you're more than welcome to do so after this video. And we'll just quickly go over the objectives that we had in the writing challenge there. So with a lot of the writing challenges that I'll put on this YouTube channel, you'll have 3 different challenges. Each of these gets slightly harder as we progress throughout. So you have the challenge, nice and simple, straightforward task to do to practice your creative writing. Write a description or an opening of a story based on the image that you're given. Super challenge, use imagery to engage your audience. So when I'm thinking about my super challenge, rather than thinking about using all of the techniques that you know, let's focus on just 1 or 2. When we're doing these creative writing tasks, they're only short, simple tasks just to get used to practicing and getting us used to actually using those techniques in a normal everyday kind of setting. And then the mega challenge. Now this one's really important. I will give the learners several different words to look up and research. These words are going to help you in terms of getting marks for using a broad range of vocabulary. So if you have a look at the words down below, we've got tremulous, thunderous, yearning, and amiable. Now you might not know what all of these words mean. That is fine. You should go away and try and research them, because if you can use a decent vocabulary in your writing, it'll get you a few marks. So again, this is the creative writing challenge that we did for the creative writing bonfire night video, and one of my learners had a go at this and was good enough to give us an example of their first attempt at learning. Now with any first attempt at learning, we're not expecting it to be perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to think about what things work well in the response and look at a few ways that it might be improved to help them gain more marks. Look at the first attempt in learning. What do you think about the response? So this is just the opening, but by and large, as a teacher, as someone who actually really wants to see my students improve and develop their creative writing, I was really happy with this first response. Now this learner was in year 9, so he hasn't had a lot of opportunity to write creative writing in terms of GCSE kind of level, but I'm really impressed with the first response. So it says for the first paragraph, "It was a bitter, cold and frosty night when the caretaker of the lovely vibrant park started the fireworks display. There were many people of many ages that came that night, some in families, others were couples, and some were on their own." Now you can see there that he's used some interesting adjectives to describe the actual setting that he's talking about. Now this is a really fantastic thing to do whenever you're doing your creative writing. A lot of teachers would advise you to first of all describe the overall setting, landscape and environment that your story is set in, and he does that quite well. He's talking about it being bitter cold. Very nice piece of language he's used there. So bitter cold, again some really nice descriptive language there. It was frosty, so it's given us a real kind of sense of the time of year. Obviously we know if it's bonfire night it's going to be quite cold and quite bleak in terms of the environment. There were many people of many ages that came that night, some in families, others were couples and some were on their own. Now this is where it starts to go away from just a little bit. There are a few grammatical errors that we might need to go back and change, and some of those things that aren't too bad, but again we want to make sure we're correcting them as we go along. The first thing I draw your attention to is this word, that night, some in families. So unfortunately this is what a lot of people do. Even when they get to GCSE level, they use the incorrect form of the word there. So instead of meaning families with the apostrophe, that means like it's being used as a possession, as if the family owns something. So that would need to be corrected. And others were, so it means others were, so it needs to take off the H on that one as well. Other than that, there wasn't really that much to correct. It's not the best opening you're ever going to see, but it's doing everything that you expect in an opening. It's setting it up in a nice kind of atmosphere and telling us about the environment that it's set in. So that's a good start there for the first paragraph. If there's any way that you think maybe it could be improved, maybe you could use this and have a go at your own response if you want to look back again at the bonfire night video by yourself. Now we're going to move on. We're going to have a look at the rest of the response. In the shadows was a bright burning light from the fireworks, as though an artist had splashed his paint over a black canvas. The fireworks rocketed up into the sky like it had been given permission to take off. The fireworks were amazing, and the people looked up as the fireworks blazed their way into the air like they was lighting the way for an aeroplane to land. Just then a happy-looking lad came into the fireworks display and laid one of his own on the ground and lit it up. The firework edged its way through the crowd like a slithering snake in the grass, making them jump at once into the air like monkeys falling around, just so they wouldn't get caught by this rogue firework. Something you might notice as people develop their creative writing is once you get into the flow, things start to come a little bit more natural. So there's maybe a few errors in that first initial paragraph, but we can see now that the learner's getting into the second, or the main body of his writing there, that it's starting to get up a bit more of a flow and starts to sound a little bit more natural. You do have a few good techniques in here as well. You have things like bright burning there of the alliteration or even plosive sound there with the B sound that's coming across from there. Helps just to make it sound a little bit more atmospheric. Something I really like here, so it's talking about the fireworks. Now it's very easy when you're talking about fireworks to go on the normal path of using things like onomatopoeia, like bang, crack, pow, things like that, but it sounds a little bit juvenile. It can sound a little bit like a comic book or something like that, so we're going to try and avoid doing the obvious kind of cliche things. So it says fireworks as though an artist had splashed his paint over a black campus. He means there, instead of campus, he means canvas. So even though it hasn't necessarily been explained particularly well, because again it kind of loses the focus there towards the end, we realise that he's actually trying to say the canvas. Okay, so if you think about it in terms of the imagery that's creating, it's making it sound like something a lot more artistic. It's helping us to visualise how dark the night is, but also how bright the fireworks are by contrast as it kind of bursts onto the page, as it were. He's also used a simile in it as well, so that's a good thing to do. The only thing I would say is that this passage is very, very heavy with similes. That's absolutely fine, but if you think about the rest of your creative writing, you'd need to make sure that you're using other techniques as well, just so that you can demonstrate to the examiner that you know how to use other techniques and not just similes. The firework rocketed up into the sky like it had been given permission to take off. So it's using the word like there as well. So it's kind of like it's trying to do a simile, but I feel like it needs just to be reworded a little bit more. Who's given them permission? Could it be an actual proper rocket, like something launched from NASA? Or when it says given permission, it's almost like we're talking about personification there as well. Who's given it permission? Could you say like a child given free rein by his parents or something like that? Could you change it a little bit to make it a little bit more atmospheric and a little bit more effective? The fireworks were amazing. Nice to see the actual interesting adjectives there when describing the fireworks. And the people looked up just as the fireworks blazed their way into the air like there was lighting the way for an aeroplane to land. Okay, so the only thing I'd change there, instead of saying that like they were, just so it sounds a little bit more professional in terms of their creative writing, we should change that word to were. Lighting the way for an aeroplane to land. Again, is getting into that similar kind of pattern there, where he knows how to use a simile, and he's kind of using it a little bit too much. So lighting the way for an aeroplane. So it is a good example. Excuse this horrible colouring there, but we can see there that he is using quite an effective simile, but from the examiner's point of view, they want to see that you're able to use a few more techniques, a few more things just to help bring the writing to life and make it a little bit more effective. What I'd also suggest here is using a new paragraph. So we use a new paragraph when we are introducing a new time, person, place, topic, anything like that. So you have a new paragraph here because it says, just then a happy looking lad came into the firework display. Because we've now shifted focus, we're now no longer talking about the same firework or the fireworks particularly. We're moving focus and talking about this boy that comes into the scene. We need to have a new paragraph. The firework edged its way through the crowd. Okay, fantastic. Now when you think about this bit, the firework edged its way, that is using personification there. If you're not sure what we mean when we say personification, it's when you give something that isn't alive human characteristics. So just the fact that it says edged, it means it's kind of moving slowly through the crowd. It's kind of a strange imagery there as well, because you wouldn't expect a firework to move slowly. Might seem a little bit unclear. Is the lad carrying it? Has he lit it now? Which we know he has from the previous part, in which case it seems a little bit strange that it's edging its way. Maybe say that it is darting through the crowd or something like that. But still, it's a very good attempt there at trying to use personification. Maybe not be the most appropriate or accurate idea, but at least it's trying. At least it's kind of it's getting there, right? So we see all the good hallmarks of someone who eventually is going to be able to produce quite a high level piece of creative writing. Something else I like is using a simile again, but it's also used sibilance, where it's talking about the movements of the firework. So it moves through the crowd like a slithering snake. So yes, it's used a simile, which we know because it's used like or as. But this slithering snake, you've got that wonderful sense of sibilance there, and emphasizing that the firework might be causing something dangerous or evil, which of course it would be if it was set off in a crowd. So, slithering through the crowd like a slithering snake in the grass, making them jump at once into the air like monkeys falling around, just so they wouldn't get caught by this rogue firework. And a rogue firework, what a wonderful way to describe the chaos that is ensuing from letting off a firework in a crowd. All in all, this is quite an interesting response. I like the fact that the person's clearly thought very clearly about the techniques they want to use, even the language there. A lot of people wouldn't have described a firework as being rogue, so the fact that they're trying to branch out a little bit there and use some more sophisticated vocabulary is absolutely fantastic. If you think back to the previous challenges that it was aiming for this task, he didn't use any of the actual language in terms of the key vocabulary for this one, but that's fine because he's made up for it by himself by trying to embed a few keywords himself. If you'd like to use this response as a little bit of a starting point or to judge it against any creative writing that you've done yourself, please feel free to do so. We're now going to go over and we're going to have a look at the next part. Look at the guidance below for the learner's work. So here we can see this is the typical kind of thing that you might be getting if you were to do a piece of work in a normal English lesson. So after a normal assessment, if it's just a quick assessment in class, the very least you should have is a what went well and a HTIP, or how to improve, or even EBI. So we'll go over the things that went well first of all. So the response has been structured appropriately. Other than that one time where it needed to change paragraphs, it was quite a decent response. It started off giving us that really nice overview of the landscape and then zoomed in for the firework display and also shifted focus to the boy who was up to no good. The learner clearly shows a different focus in each paragraph, and the candidate has tried to use language, so it has used similes and personification. On the flip side, here are a few ways that you can just take some baby steps to try to improve. So the response needs to be developed a bit further. Had some really good ideas there. In the GCSE exam, you'd be expected to do 5 paragraphs, and it seemed towards the end that he was getting into a really nice flow, nice rhythm that I would have really liked to have seen continue. The learner needs to use a range of Go Massive techniques. Now, if you're not familiar with this, we did a lesson on this in the previous video. Go Massive techniques is just an acronym that you can use to help remember some of the key language techniques that you can use for the English language exam. The candidate also needs to read through the work and correct any grammatical errors. Now, if we're marking this for AQA, you get 16 marks for what we call technical accuracy, and that covers things like your grammar, your spelling, your punctuation, all those kind of fun things. So if you're not being aware of those things, if you're not making those corrections, then it's a real easy way to lose out on some key marks. If you'd like to build on your own response, if you'd like to challenge yourself, then please have a go at this writing challenge. So first of all, write about a time when you felt scared. We have a super challenge next. It says use personification and sensory language to make your writing effective. And the mega challenge, use the following words to make your writing more engaging. So the words we want to focus on for this task are purposeful, desolate, gut-wrenching, and catastrophe. Again, if you're not too sure what these words mean, please do take the time to research them. The wider your vocabulary, the easier it's going to be to actually embed these in your own creative writing. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you a typical example that you could do just to get started. So when we're doing our creative writing challenges, these don't have to be massively long. This is just something you could use just to get you started. If you think there's anything there that you like or sounds particularly interesting, then please feel free to use in your own responses as well. So again, the exam question or the writing challenge was all about writing about a time when you felt scared. So it says, fear gripped me like a vice. As the creature kept closer, I felt my airways contract, precious air escaping my lungs. Slowly, purposely, it shuffled closer, its dark, desolate eyes finding mine and staring into my soul. My body refused to listen, and with a sudden gut-wrenching certainty, I accepted the truth. There was no escape from the monstrous mouse. If you'd like to pause the video here and you'd like to look through the response and identify any techniques or methods that have been used to make this effective, please feel free to do so. I have tried to use a few of the techniques that we've been focusing on, so if you do want to use any of this as a starting point, please feel free to do so. If you need any additional support or help, then new videos will be added onto our YouTube channel every single week. Alternatively, you can check out our partner channel, Bookworm Teaching, for some absolutely fantastic videos on all things English. If you do need anything else that isn't covered in anything on our channel, please do like and subscribe, leave us a comment, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks guys, and all the best with your writing in the future.